This is Sexy Funny Raw, where we chat all about the world of sex, from dating and relationships all the way to the adult industry itself. I'm Silvia Saige, and this is my Pornspective, answering all the questions you weren't even brave enough to ask Google. Get ready, because Sexy Funny Raw starts now. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da. Oh, it ended so fast. It really goes so much longer. Welcome back, guys. I am your host, Silvia Saige, and this is Sexy Funny Raw. And welcome back, of course, my wonderful co-host, Dr. Eddie, giving us all the public health perspective that we need and desire.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, sex education with actual education. That's what we all need. And I do have a new guest in for this month of shows. And this is my first time meeting this woman. I'm super excited about it. She came referred very highly from one of my best friends. And I've just been chatting with her before the show started. And I am so excited about these episodes. Please welcome Miss Monarey Martinez.
Oh, thank you. I get the middle name.
I know. It's on your Instagram, so I wanted to do it. I feel like your mom, but I like it.
Somebody deserved it.
Yeah. So originally from Buffalo, New York, Monterey has been doing stand-up for 8 years, as well as host her own podcast called Shamek.
The Shamek.
The Shamek.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry if I mispronounce it.
Yeah.
Taking spirituality through a comedic lens, Monterey takes trauma, transmutes it, and finds the light within, which I think is beautiful.
Thank you.
Honing these spirituality skills has clearly helped her in her own journey, as she has been featured for numerous heavy hitters, including, but not limited to, Tim Dillon, Drew Lynch, Steve Byrne, Kurt Metzger, and Bobby Lee.
Yeah.
Huge names. I love it. Monterey truly enjoys taking people on journeys, as she also does Reiki.
Yeah,
okay.
Reiki.
And can shaman people through a psychedelic experience.
Yeah.
Which I think I've met you for a reason, because I am so ready to go through a psychedelic experience.
Yes.
Do you do anything with, and we'll get to this in a later episode too, but just out of my own curiosity, I've been looking into like microdosing, like acid. Do you do that?
Yeah, I have a girlfriend, actually. I'll plug her. She has a thing called Cosma Prima, and it's like she does microdosing, and you can just like go to her site. But they do shrooms. She does acid. She does DMT.
What about LSD?
Yeah, so LSD and acid
is the same thing. Yes,
yeah,
that's what I thought.
I always tell people that I feel like psychedelics are like therapy, like 12 years of therapy in one 8-hour session. Yeah. So it's helped me so much. And I've done regular therapy. I've done hypnotherapy. I've done like trauma release, like exercises, and I'm like, it's been the psychedelics for me. That's like really just helped like heal and purge and just, get that little anger out of my soul.
Yeah, I feel that. I love microdosing mushrooms. I do them personally all the time, but I've never done LSD, and I saw that thing on Netflix recently, and I was like, oh, I want to open that third eye.
Yeah. Oh, it'll open.
I want in there.
Yeah. It definitely, LSD will take you there.
I'm a little scared of it, but I want it.
No, it's very similar to mushrooms. Like, and it's like the place that you go to, it's everybody thinks that you're just going to be hallucinating. You're going to see demons and dragons or whatever, but it's like you have complete like control.
Okay.
It's like, but when you go with somebody else and they're leading you, basically they're just like setting like the set in like your environment to where like you can kind of just be one-on-one, because when people are with their friends, you start talking, you're listening to music, you don't get to like tap in. So I kind of just like guide people like kind of like through like a meditation, and then you might have memories pop up, or you might have fears pop up, and then we just kind of walk through it, and then just talk them live in the moment, and then you'll just have all these insights and epiphanies and like understanding, and then it's just like it's really beautiful and powerful for sure.
Dr. Eddie, are you in? Are you going to go with me?
I would be totally down. There's actually some really great medical literature on the impacts of these types of methods on like veterans or those people suffering from PTSD.
Right.
So there is some scientific evidence that actually backs up everything you've just said,
right.
Which is just beautiful, right?
Like,
that doesn't always happen, but in this case, they're making some really great progress.
For sure.
So I'm down.
Yes, I can't wait. Okay, so we are diving into a part 2 episode because last month we talked about penises, one of my favorite subjects ever. And we had so much that we didn't even get through. So welcome back to today. We're going to do part 2.
Part 2, Penile. Yes.
Here we go. Are we ready to roll into this?
Yes.
I'm so ready. Okay. So obviously we know there are some unique variations of the penis that might or might not have anything to do with disease, but are just natural differences, right? So ultimately penises are like snowflakes, and no two penises are alike and none better than the other. I beg to differ, but that's what Dr. Eddie says.
I was like, why do I keep calling my ex then?
Right. But much of it has to do with experience and preferences, right?
Right.
So we do want to make sure that if you do have any concerns that you do actually speak to your primary care physician, but we are going to point out a few things that may seem like a issue, but are more or less just a cosmetic issue to the penis. So let's get to going. So the first thing, and I may ask our new interns here to pull up for us, is the I'm so bad at words. Okay. Purely penile papules. Did I pronounce
Pearly,
it?
like pearl?
Pearl.
Pearly because they look pearlesque.
Pearly penile papules.
Yep.
Okay, that's what we want. So these are just tiny lumps that are seen in neat little rows around the cornea of the glans penis. So these, to me, they do look like little tiny warts. And now if I saw this on a penis on a set, I would be majorly concerned.
Yeah.
I actually have seen them on a partner in the past. And I was also told that, oh, it's nothing to worry about. These are, totally benign and there's not anything you can catch. It's just a part that happens to some men on their penises.
Right.
Did we get them?
I want to see the pearls.
So this condition is actually seen in 8 to 43% of men, which is kind of staggering when you think about
It's
it.
pretty high.
Yeah.
To different degrees, right? So it could be just a little bit, or it could be a little bit more visually impactful.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it really it makes the biggest impact on the owner of said penis.
Right.
Because it causes a lot of stress and anxiety.
Yeah, and you're constantly having to explain it, right?
Right.
You
People
do.
don't believe you.
Absolutely, because most people don't, know it exists. A lot of partners will probably feel very
There it
anxious
is.
about
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay, so these are the papules that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so this is a pretty standard kind of look. So
Always right around the head like that?
it is always right around the head
Okay.
like that. And so it doesn't really come into play until after puberty.
Right.
So children don't typically have them. There's some research that suggests that circumcised penises have it more, but other research that suggests that uncircumcised penises have it more.
Yeah.
I've seen it more in circumcised penises.
Yeah.
But it's not anything other than mostly cosmetic.
And I will say, since you said it develops mostly after puberty, now, if a mother were to see this on a son's penis, I think the mom would go, let's get into the doctor and let's go check it out. However, I think of a man who is pubescent. What is the word I'm looking for?
Prepubescent.
Prepubescent. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's the word. Yeah. I don't think they would tell anyone or want to go to a doctor or do anything about it because I think you're just so scared and you're nervous for anyone to see it. So these are normal. This is not a sexually transmitted disease, and it is happening in almost 43% of men, which is staggering to me. But you're not alone, and it's not a disease. So definitely something we should know. And you did say that sometimes they are obviously mistaken for like poor hygiene, but the condition doesn't really have anything to do with any outside sources, right? So
Absolutely.
Good. So there are treatments, right?
There are, absolutely. So like I was saying earlier, it usually causes a lot of stress and anxiety for the owner of the member.
Yeah.
And so if you go to a doctor and if it, for the anxiety reasons is why, one of the only reasons they would treat it, right? It's not because it has any impact on the function of the organ or anything like that.
Right.
So there are two main ways that you can treat it, but there's a lot of ways that people mistreat it, which create a lot of problems in those sensitive areas around the penis.
Right.
So cryotherapy and laser. So it could be lasered off, which leaves a little bit of a scar. But it's
we're both the same. That sounds awful.
Yeah.
asleep when that happens,
Okay.
under anesthesia, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would
I'm
hope.
actually not 100% sure, but probably.
Okay.
And cryo, which is probably not the first choice.
That's
right?
like the
Laser's
throat,
fine.
like when you go into like that chamber and it's like completely cold.
When
right?
the cryo would be very specific in that area.
Like a
for those
laser?
Very specific
Like a
things.
laser of cryo, right? Or
Kind
no?
of like that, yeah.
Okay.
And so it does create some problems if you use like anti-wart medication, which young guys have done, and it creates a lot of problems. We'll talk about warts in a minute, but these aren't warts, and so the only way to really get rid of them would be to have a physician
Surgically remove them.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so go for it.
I almost wonder, is it not like a plastic surgeon at that point? Because it's making it like aesthetically pleasing? Because most regular doctors don't really care about aesthetics. They're not going to do the prettiest job.
Right.
Well, I mean, I would say it's a pretty standard, minimally invasive
Okay.
kind of approach. I don't think it would be a plastic surgeon that has to do it. I think a
Okay.
urologist could
Oh,
probably do that.
I guess that.
Urologists are typically surgeons.
Makes
Right.
sense.
And so they could handle that and make sure that nothing is wrong.
Because, I mean, you're doing it for aesthetics, right?
Sure, but you're also doing it because the only reason that they would do that kind of treatment is because of its impact on you. And so
Right.
overall health is impacted by anxiety, by all of those things. If it's
Right.
impacting your anxiety and engaging in a healthy
Relationships.
sexual relationship,
Yeah.
then it becomes very problematic.
Right.
And so that does happen quite often with this case because most people don't talk about it. No one knows that it's a thing.
Right.
And it's so easy to misconstrue any variation
Right.
with an STI and all that stuff because they manifest sometimes somewhat similarly or not.
Right.
No other one really manifests like this per se,
Yeah.
but warts and stuff are in different parts of the penis. So, it could be certainly misconstrued that way.
And now going on to, and we don't have to go straight into warts, but this is just something you also talked about how you should definitely never use like over-the-counter topical products on
Absolutely.
your genitals. And I wonder, is there ever a time where you can use like lighter things? Like, and you personally use this. Not for warts, but I get moles, and I put apple cider vinegar on my moles, and it like destroys them
Oh,
and like
really?
breaks them down and takes them away, like literally after a few weeks.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had them on my forehead, and I just put
Whoa.
apple cider vinegar on them every night for like a week, and they literally fell off.
So if I have like a mole on my arm or something, and you just put apple cider vinegar on, it'll just come off.
I put like a Band-Aid in a cotton balls
Whoa.
in apple cider vinegar, and then just
Yeah.
tape it on every night, and that's what I did to my forehead for like 2 weeks, and they just fell off.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm like, can you ever use something like that on your genitals? I've never put it on my genitals.
I would be very,
by the way.
I would be very cautious about
Okay,
doing
'cause it
stuff
does
like that
burn.
on your. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I would definitely talk to a physician
Yeah.
before I do any of those things. Like the internet is chaos,
Yeah.
No.
and most people throw things on there that
Yeah.
probably we shouldn't try on ourselves
Right.
because this could be a permanent issue.
Oh, for
Right.
So
sure.
I would certainly avoid it. I
Don't
don't
do
know
what I
the-
tell you. Don't do that. Don't do
Well,
that.
on your
I was like, I'm
genitals.
gonna do it.
On your
Right.
genitals,
Right, right.
for sure.
Yeah.
On your arm.
Yeah.
Try it.
I'm gonna
For
try it.
sure.
Yeah.
I think that's different. I
Yeah.
think they're pretty different.
Okay, good. Just checking. Just want to be sure. Want to give all the accurate information. Okay, so moving on. So there are a different thing that you may notice on a penis that, again, not an STD, but something that you may just be aware of is Fordyce spots. Did I say it correctly?
You did?
Thank you, Jesus. I can do some words,
Yes.
not all
Boom.
words. Some
I've
of
never
them I
even heard
got.
that word.
Right, I had neither. So Fordyce spots are visible, small, raised bumps that appear on the shaft of the penis, the labia, the scrotum, or next to the lips. So this can go for male or female, great? Which I did not realize. So you're probably born with these spots, but they tend to appear around puberty. However, they can still develop randomly as you get older. I'm going to have you guys Google this one once again. Okay, so these are also not a sexually transmitted disease. These spots are not transmitted by anything at all. So these are not dangerous to you at all. It's just literally something that you're born with, but something that also, again, could give some I mean, I would be a little intimidated if I saw it on myself or on anyone else. But I think I do actually. I've seen them. Obviously, I work in pornography and I've done a lot of very creative things. One time I was with a woman and we put the little forceps that that the doctors hold you open with, but we had clear ones. And so we held her open with these, and then we basically stuck a camera inside. We did both of our vaginas. But I had a clear view on hers and she had a clear view on mine. And I noticed little almost small dots like this on her vagina, but it wasn't anything that was painful to her. She didn't mention it or anything. Right. So I think she might have actually had these 4 dice spots. So very interesting. They're very, very small. You almost can't really see them. They almost look flat to the skin. I would think you would almost have to do something like I did, where it was just super invasive and really close up in order to even notice them.
Sometimes on the penis shaft, you can see them when it's erect.
Here's some on the lips, by the way.
Oh.
Interesting. Okay.
So sometimes you see it when the penis is erect along the side.
Along the side.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty common.
Now that you mentioned it, I probably have seen that. I just wouldn't have noticed it was anything.
It depends if a man shaves or if a woman shaves.
Oh, really?
And a lot of that stuff, because sometimes hair goes up the side of the shaft to a certain point.
Okay.
And so, that could be covered or it could be kind of in there as well. So, but they're pretty common.
Yeah.
But they're not an STI. And
right.
So understanding that there's some variation here, I think, is really important. So that people don't feel self-conscious, and the more we know, the better it's going to be for everybody involved to have
reading rainbow,
safe, comfortable sex, right? Because any little thing can really create a lot of anxiety.
Oh, absolutely.
Engaging in sex, and if you're not using condoms all the time, that creates.
Who is using condoms all the time?
That creates even more issues.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice thought, but also, they're like vagina rape. I don't know how you feel about them, Monterey, but
about vagina
condoms,
what?
Condoms.
Oh, I don't use them.
Really?
But I don't have. I'm not having one night stands or anything.
Are you in a relationship? Are you?
No, I recently just got out of a relationship, but yeah. So I don't. I think maybe when I first had sex with him, we were okay, let's use a condom, and then we were like. Okay.
Usually it's the first few times you have sex, you use a condom, and then you're like, are we comfortable?
Yeah.
We're comfortable. Let's go. Yeah, that's how it is.
But if normally a person, I'm I usually will trust them, and I'm and I know that I'll be can you just get tested? Because I'm always paranoid. I'm just take a screenshot that you got tested and just let me know. Because it's I had a friend who got herpes and was there with her during that process, and how hard and damaging that was to her, and just watching that process, I'm now I'm just always terrified, where I'm I gotta see some papers.
Well, I think anybody should get tested all the time. I always say that that's the biggest thing. I always make new partners get tested, and I stay tested for work purposes, obviously, but huge in it. So good for you.
If the rest of us did as well as the adult film industry,
I know.
I think we would be in a lot better shape, right?
I agree with you.
Have to test so much.
Yeah, I agree with that statement 100%. Okay, so moving on to penile warts, because this is a big one, okay? So this is one where you can obviously be born with a penile wart, but you can also get genital warts. Now, these are being two totally different things. So a penile wart, they are irregular, rough lesions that can occur anywhere along the penile shaft, glands, and foreskin. They can also arise from, now I'm going to have to ask you what this word is, because meatus? What is that?
Yeah.
What is meatus?
The meaty, heavy part.
Oh, the good part. Okay.
The fun part.
They can arrive on all the best parts of the penis. Okay. So warts do vary in size from a millimeter anywhere to a few centimeters. Okay. So these are non-STD warts. These are just regular genital warts. That these are not going to be transmitted. These are normal warts, right?
Yes, as you can imagine,
still
it
terrifying.
Would cause a lot of anxiety.
100%.
Yeah.
Sure.
And now you can still get rid of these, correct?
Absolutely.
Again, probably more of that cryotherapy or laser therapy to get them removed.
I would say yes. From what I've read on these, you don't want to use regular wart removers, only because it's incredibly sensitive areas.
Yeah.
Even though some people have. I would definitely consult a physician if you're going to be doing that stuff and follow whatever they say. They'll have some recommendations. It's really going to depend on what part of the shaft, and it's going to depend on all of different things.
Yeah, if I pulled down a man's pants and saw that, I would run for the hills. I don't even think you could explain that away.
Yeah.
You would physically have to show me some like medical
information.
I'm like, I'm going to need the background on how long you've had this on your penis. I don't think I could do it.
I need your doctor on speakerphone.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk to him.
Let's talk to him
right
together.
now.
But can you see how this conversation would create a lot of anxiety for guys?
110%.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
There's no way, even if you okayed it, that guy's getting his dick hard. No way. There's just no way. Not exactly. Not after you've had that conversation of like, pull him on the phone, get your doctor up here. Let's have a conversation. No, it's too much. Too much. Okay, but we know that that is not obviously an STD, and obviously a genital wart from an STD would look differently.
They don't look incredibly differently.
Yeah, it's scary. Okay.
Yeah. That's like, oh no. Okay.
They don't look incredibly differently. And so you can get genital warts, not just in the penis, but also the anus as well. Right? And so that's also pretty common.
Okay.
On the anus, that's usually STI related, but not always.
Oh.
Right? And so this is where things get a little bit...
I have a mole next to my butthole. Not a genital wart.
Different than a wart,
Right,
though,
right.
And so both of those can be removed, of course.
I don't want it. I like it.
So, I'm not suggesting otherwise.
She's like, Cindy Crawford, thank you.
Thank you. It is my Cindy Crawford moment. No,
she's our famous.
Yeah, hers is quite famous.
Yeah. So is mine, Dr. Eddie.
Thank you.
So is mine.
She has 800,000 followers. Thank you. Very famous.
All for that mole.
Yes.
I mean, I know that in the older days, and in the old days, women would often draw one on.
Yeah.
That was really popular for a while.
Yeah.
That was neat.
I always wanted one.
No one's drawing on warts, though. That I can.
No,
Sure
especially
you
on Uranus. It's probably not something you want to draw.
Right.
Yeah.
Not want to draw them.
Not drawing any extra attention there. Okay, so moving on. So these are things I've never heard of. So Dr. Eddie is bringing new things to my attention as well. So adult acquired buried penis. I have a lot of questions about this one. Okay. So basically a buried penis is a condition in which the penis is hidden by the abdominal or suprapubic skin or fat.
Suprapubic, yeah.
Suprapubic.
Yeah, it's when
he puts all these big words in here.
Hey,
See what he does
sorry,
to me?
I try and calm them down when I read through it. So it's usually something that occurs in obese and morbidly obese people. So it actually, like, the penis is hidden within a lot of fat and skin. And so it creates a variety of different problems with anxiety, with sex. But if we're trying to talk about everybody having like a happy sex life, right? A functional, healthy sex life, these are variations that you might come across. And so because we come across them, that's kind of why I kind of threw it on there.
But question that I had now, would it occur with somebody who wasn't obese? Is this something that could happen like where the penis just literally kind of like concaves? Is it?
It could happen if you were previously obese and you have large folds of skin
left
and all
over.
of those things. And so it really just it does in fact bury the penis.
Right.
And so it creates a variety of functional challenges.
There it is.
Oh.
There's the buried penis.
And so if the enlarged fat pad right there really takes away the length, but it also creates like a fold above it.
Yeah.
And so it does hide it. And so in the literature, like in the medical literature, it's usually referring to morbidly obese, which is like over a specific percentage of BMI, or previously morbidly obese, which
is already not healthy for your sex life. So
sure, but if that's where you're at, then how can we have a healthy sex life and make sure that that's okay and it doesn't freak somebody out, right? Because it could potentially be misconstrued as a micropenis or a variety of other things, which there's nothing wrong with that either, right? However,
personal
just
preference.
knowing, usually men aren't really well educated on the female anatomy. I remember when we first started having these, we were talking about the vulva and all of the different parts and anatomies. And I know that most men aren't familiar with the different parts of the female anatomy. It's all the vagina. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's in fact not all the vagina.
Right.
And so the same thing applies to women and men, right? If you have had exposure to a penis or two, that is your sample size. That is all you know. And there's a lot of variation in the world. And like you said earlier, they're like snowflakes.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, can it be because maybe they do have a micropenis? So even if they aren't morbidly obese, they're just slightly obese, and having the micropenis also, it will also create this?
Not create this. I'd say that they're really the only person that could diagnose these things would be your physician.
Okay.
So self-diagnosis and WebMD, probably want to stay away from that for these kinds of things.
Okay.
And so I wouldn't say that one causes the other, but it's I'm sure possible to have both.
The photo that we just had up there, it kind of looks like the penis is literally like inside the skin. Is that like what's happening?
Well, there's more fat above that area in the pubic area. And so because there's more fat, it's kind of engulfed the organ part.
But this to me looks like there's like a hole that it's about to come out of.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Well, that
is this a
specific
weird
picture is an uncircumcised penis.
Okay.
So that
Yeah, because I was like,
uncircumcised
what
penis
the
that's
hell?
created.
Yeah, I was
like-
very confused. Yeah, okay.
I was like, I'd never seen that hole before.
yeah, I haven't seen that hole either. I was like, where is this coming from? Okay, great.
Okay.
Well, I
Okay.
mean, that raises questions about circumcised versus uncircumcised,
Right.
right? Because some women have never had experience with uncircumcised penises.
Which they should. They're fantastic, especially for anal. Big fan. Big fan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what's the difference? Like, why? I mean, I've seen two. Thank you. I'm a big girl. But what do you think is the difference that you're like, oh, and especially for anal, like, why is it uncircumcised?
For me personally, now, Dr. Eddie, you may have your own various opinions on this, but for me personally, for an uncircumcised penis to enter the vagina, it doesn't have that pop that a circumcised penis would have, as to where when a circumcised penis enters my butt, because the sphincter is just one hole. That a lot of people think that it's like the same as a vagina. It's not. There's just one hole that it has to get through, and then once it's on the other side, it's on the other side.
Yeah.
So once that head pops through, it's like you have to keep popping in and out. That head keeps popping, pop, 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 pop.
Yeah.
As opposed to with a circumcised penis, it's just one fluid motion. So uncircumcised, yeah. So it's just like just sliding, and it's such a nice feeling to not feel like, oh my gosh, there's another time you went in. Oh gosh, you like feel it every time with a circumcised penis. It's just a nice fluid motion for me. I enjoy
what
it.
ends up happening a lot of the time, to be overly specific, I'm not
Please
sure if we want to
do.
be overly specific, would be the foreskin gets pulled up as it's coming out and then in, right? And so that shift in the foreskin, which we'll talk about this in a second, but if your foreskin can go back and forth when you're erect, because some people can't, right? Then it's preventing that pop, so to speak, right?
Yeah, so much
and
better.
it also self-lubricates a little bit to an extent and all of that stuff. So even though lube is definitely your friend.
Yes.
Right? And as we age, lube becomes more our friend
So
for
much
men
my
and
friend.
women.
Right.
And it becomes ever more important. But in anal sex, I can see that as certainly one of the reasons.
Why is it that sometimes men feel offended by reaching for the lube? Have you ever had that? Have you ever had a man almost feel like offended that you're like, can I get some lube?
No, I feel like I've never had. I feel like sometimes like I would be like, I would be
guilt?
self-conscious
Yeah.
or something where I'm like, no, it's not you.
Right.
Like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, especially if they have like a bigger penis where it's like, I notice on like the outside of my vagina will feel like it like gets like rug burn or something.
Yes.
And so I'm like, I want like coconut oil, something on the outside of it. So it's just like more smooth.
Yes.
But I don't ever, and I'm just like, it's not you. Like, I'm like, you can feel the inside of my vagina. I'm wet.
Yeah.
It's like, I just need help.
Yeah,
like, I need
the
a little more.
outside for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that rug burn is
Real.
real.
It's
Oh my
very
God.
real.
Can I add to that real quick?
Yes.
Only because as we get older, especially as women get older, they actually produce less lubricant.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it shouldn't be I'm getting offended
Yeah.
Right.
kind of situation. It should be like, this is the go-to. We really should plan ahead.
Right.
That's not often the case if it's spur of the moment in a
Right.
car, in an alley, whatever the case may be, that gets you going. But a
good
little bit of
stuff,
pro
for
planning makes it better for everybody, because otherwise you can have a lot of micro tears and micro abrasions.
I've definitely had micro tears before, and I thought I had an STD, and I was like, oh my God. But it's like, I'm like, what is? And they're like, you have micro tears. Like,
Because it's almost a burning.
Yeah,
Right.
totally.
Yeah.
Well, and it also relates to STIs.
Yeah, what does
offhandedly.
STI stand for?
Sexually transmitted
Infection.
infections.
Oh, okay.
Infections cause disease. So sexually
Got
transmitted infections cause sexually transmitted diseases.
Got it. Okay.
But those little micro tears often create environments where if there is an STI involved, the chances of getting it skyrocket.
Right.
And so if you want to avoid that altogether, of course, use condoms if you're going to. But if you're not going to, then lube helps.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about
We
how
have
it is.
all angles.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. Yeah, I've definitely torn. Sex can be very brutal with or without lube. But
It certainly happens in the anus
Yeah.
quite often.
oh,
for sure.
yeah, for sure. And I feel like the butt can handle more than vagina can, though. I don't know why. I just feel like if it's a bigger dick, I can take it in my butt as opposed to my vagina.
See, I feel the opposite. I'm
Right.
like, oh my, I'm like, please don't go near my butt. Like, if I'm like, no, I'm like, it hurts. Yeah.
I think we all come out of vaginas, so I think that's
Yeah.
probably the strongest thing we got going on right now.
True.
Right? Because that can take a pounding.
Yeah, it can. And it wants to. It wants to.
Fair enough. But the anus is sensitive and it takes time and you have
Yeah.
to have experience.
Warm up.
And,
Yeah.
you know, all of those things are very, very important.
But the vagina also has to be warmed up. Like
Yeah.
foreplay is so underrated.
I
Like
know.
I need it. Like I miss the days of like intense making out for 20 minutes before you get into sex
Yeah.
or fingering me
Yeah,
or
it
like
should
the
always
fun
be
stuff.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will like literally like I don't want to say I'm mean to men, but like if I'm in there not and I'm like, oh, did you think that we were just? Did you think you're going to skip over 4 steps? Like absolutely
Right.
not. No. Like, and I'll equally exchange, but
Yeah.
I'm like. This is a process.
Yeah.
We're not just like I've had guys like that just like guys I'm dating and they just like roll over and they're like, bruh, and I'm like, no,
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you just no.
You need the first down, second down, and third down before you can score the touchdown.
Yes.
Okay? Like sometimes you can throw a Hail Mary, but it's not every time.
Totally.
All right? Sorry, it's football
I would
season.
say
I'm into it. I'm into it.
those are behaviors that are learned.
right.
Yeah.
You know, and so what I would say about that is that especially young guys might not have a lot of experience. That is the big thing getting
Right.
in there, and
Yeah.
then it's only 5 minutes anyway if you're lucky. Because
If
the
you're
average
lucky.
is pretty low,
Right.
Right, for time wise, and so if you don't have experience with those things,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes having a slightly older woman can teach you a great deal
Right.
of things.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. I was
Yes,
like, I am
for
here
sure.
to teach, and I'm like, and tell all your friends. God damn it, spread the word. Yeah.
I love that you're so much of a teacher. We're gonna get into that in a minute as well. Okay, so a few more things here. Priapism. Is I pronounce it correctly? Yes. Okay. Is a persistent and usually painful erection that isn't caused by sexual stimulation or arousal. So what is causing it then?
So there's a lot of unknowns.
Okay.
And so some people have experienced really, really painful erections that have nothing to do with being aroused or anything.
Just like
And so
a
it
breeze
just
of wind.
happens. And so because it just happens, there's still a lot of things that we don't understand about the functioning of said issue.
Right.
It's just something that does happen to some people. So if a man was to experience those painful erections
out of nowhere.
then it's something that you absolutely want to go see a physician about.
How long is this like erection lasting?
An average, right? And so it could be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, because we can hold an erection for quite a while, even if you're not orgasming.
Right.
Really?
And so you can hold it, even though typical sex, the average for men is quite low.
Right.
Of the actual event. The actual event.
Yeah.
Some of the words
the main
I use-
event.
The
We
main
knew what you
event.
meant.
Main event.
But some
We
people
knew
do
it.
get these painful erections.
Okay.
And so I just want to make sure
Just
that,
be aware.
yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes it happens. sometimes when you're engaging in sex, your partner might take things a little personally, like we've already addressed a little bit.
Yes.
And some of these things, we haven't really spoken too much about men and the penis other than it needs to be hard. It needs to be there when you want it. And that is the essence of your manhood. Right? And so we represent... and for a lot of men, it represents their masculinity. There's a lot of things tied up in there. Right. So when something is working unusual or something different happens, then it could create a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. And if our partners knew that, then it would probably be less of an issue. Right? But our partners typically don't, because we get some of the worst sex education here in the U.S.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So moving on to a new... arena, phimosis.
This one's pretty common.
Okay, so this is a condition in which the foreskin of an uncircumcised penis cannot be retracted from the penis head, causing painful urination and erections. So it does not come back at all. So it just stays covering the penis.
It does.
And it's painful.
It is if you try and retract it. We had spoken previously, I think in the last episode, about in childhood not pulling the foreskin back for young babies, right? Even to clean, that let them do it in their own time when they're playing with that area. And so not forcing it because there's still membranes. This is not that, but it's similar in that you can't pull it back because
it's almost grown together.
Well, the skin is tight, so the hole is too small on the skin to pull over the erect penis.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it's really, really common for uncircumcised penises. Well, it's common for uncircumcised penises. Not very common, but it's common.
And now, is there a surgery that they have to kind of make the hole bigger?
If they want, they can. They can, like a small cut on the rim of the foreskin will let it be retractable, and that's pretty much all it'll be. But it is a surgery, so
but they could live like this.
Absolutely, lots of men do.
Really, they have sex and it's still they still get pleasure.
Absolutely, it just becomes perhaps an area that
there you go.
It just becomes an area that when it's not erect, that's when you have to do a lot of hygiene things.
I was about to say the hygiene thing would worry me in this instance, because that's what you're worried about with that foreskin, is that getting that
so you
extra.
do have to have quite a bit more hygiene. It's a little bit. Growing up, my dad had that conversation. It's a 2-minute uncomfortable conversation with your dad, but you have it, and it's not a big deal, and that's really not the standard in the U.S. So here in the U.S., you really don't talk about those things. And
no one taught me how to clean my vagina ever.
No,
never.
Even I remember our sex education was they just showed us a bunch of diseases, and they're like, don't get them.
Yes, same. That was mine too.
Yeah.
A bunch of horrible diseases and then abstinence. And I'm like, that is some bullshit. That is not what we're here to do.
It was 1 week in school and we're like, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. So on the opposite side of the phimosis is the paraphimosis. Yeah. And this is a condition in which the foreskin can't be returned to its normal position after being retracted, now causing a painful swelling of the penis and impaired blood flow. If you guys can get this one pulled up, I would love this one as well. Because basically, once you do pull the foreskin back, now it's got a sore ring basically underneath the head,
because
right?
it's really too tight.
Okay.
So it's too tight in a very sensitive area that needs a lot of blood flow, because that tissue is pretty spongy. And so if you don't have enough, it can create problems. So on the opposite end, this does create some problems versus the other one.
This looks way more painful to me.
I mean, I've never experienced either.
Okay.
So I'm not sure as far as how to quantify
pain level,
that, right? But I do know that it is not as common.
Okay.
But it does happen, and it can be a problem.
Right.
And
interesting.
But the problem that I think we talked about last time was that we're really intertwined with our ideas of masculinity, and young boys and men really tie all of these things together. So men often get less health care, right? Because they go to the doctor less. They often, if they do have any little variation, you're more unlikely to speak to a physician or to speak with one of the other guys about something specific like that. Because it's all tied up in being a man, right? These antiquated notions of what it was once that's still persistent in certain parts of the country, even more so.
I don't even know if it has to do with being a man. I just think that anytime something down there it is, the paraphimosis. I think anytime that there is something wrong with your genitals, just as a society, men, women, or indifferent, everything in between, it's terrifying to have anything wrong. Yes. I don't want to go to the doctor and tell them. I mean, now it's totally different. I have a different understanding of my vagina and what can and cannot happen to it. But certainly in my late teens and early 20s, when I was the most sexually active, I was the most terrified to go to a doctor. Like, you don't want to tell anybody anything's wrong down there.
Yeah, no, because you're like, it's just so embarrassing. I remember one time, it's embarrassing. I had a tampon stuck in me, but I didn't know that I had a tampon stuck in me. Yep. And because this is like when I first got my period, I must have forgot to take this tampon out, whatever. And then like a month had gone by, and I was like noticing this like weird smell every time I went pee. Yeah. And I was like, and I was a virgin at the time, but I was like, great, like my vagina, like it's just broken. One of those like broke, smelly vaginas. Like I'm just ruined. Like I'm never gonna be able to have kids. And I was just like crying. And then I like finally told my stepmom, and she's like, okay, we'll go to the doctor. I don't know what's wrong with it. And then like one time I was pooping, and then a tampon was like coming out. I was like, oh my God, I had an old tampon stuck in my vagina. Yeah. And I'm like, and you just like, and I just like went to school every day, just like, hey, no one look at me. Yes. Like I can't, you don't know what I'm going through. But I'm like, yeah, you're like, you had a tampon stuck in you.
I did the same thing
too, actually.
Yes.
There's a bunch of things that you can get from.
Totally.
100%. I actually had the same thing, and I went to a physician, and he was like, when were you on your period last? And I was like, oh, a week and a half ago. He was like, well, here's your problem. I was like, oh, but same thing.
Yeah.
The smell was so awful, but I didn't want to go. I didn't want to tell anybody because I was so ashamed.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy what we go through just when we needed to actually just go see a doctor.
Totally.
And doctors don't care. You've seen everything, right? Like, just come in.
You've seen a toy car up someone's vagina before, and you're just like,
what?
My vagina.
Public health doctors are a little bit different than medical doctors.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're dealing with populations,
right,
which is the biggest difference.
Yeah.
So I could tell you about STIs in the community, not so much about toy cars and anuses, but I certainly read the literature, and so I get the after report for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I mean, we're all just humans. We all do weird things with all of our body parts. So, I mean, just admit it. Just admit you're a freak.
Yeah, you're weird. You're trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think one of the benefits of your show and the work that you do is just talking about things. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And there's very little ego involved in a lot of these conversations. It's like, this has happened to me, or this is what happens. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of beauty in those conversations.
Agreed.
Because there's so much stigma in all this stuff, and it's taboo, and it's problematic.
100%.
So it's really incredible what you do.
What we do, Dr. Eddie. You're a huge part of it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So one more thing before, I think this is the last of it. Yes, this is the last one I'm going to bring up. Orgasmia. Yes.
Ooh, you're killing it.
Thank you. Is the inability to achieve an orgasm despite adequate stimulation. This applies to both men and women, but it's more common in females, which I would think it would be actually. But about 8% of men had delayed or absent orgasm. So what this means is you are in now correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I gathered from this. You can still be in a state of pleasure. So you're still maybe... like you are actually orgasming, but you're not actually coming. Is that what I'm getting from this? So there's no release.
Inability to achieve an orgasm.
Oh, so it's not even ejaculation.
Correct. So you're aroused, you're erect, but you can't ejaculate, and it's incredibly painful. And I know that there's quite a bit of literature on women experiencing this. And this is different from painful sex in general, because that's also something women experience.
Right.
Where just putting it in can be incredibly painful for some women. And that has nothing to do with like the size of the penis, nothing to do with any of those things. So this is different from that in that you can't ejaculate. And it becomes stressful.
My friend has this.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. She's never had an orgasm through masturbation or through sex. ever.
How devastating.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, you need to go to like a sex doctor or a specialist. And I'm like, and she just is always having sex with her partners. And I'm like, you gotta, like, you should do something. And she's like, it's okay. And I'm like, no, like she's never had 35 years old.
Wow.
Never had an orgasm, not once. And I'm like, that's intense.
Super depressing.
Yeah.
Because for me, and I mean, we're going to talk about this on another show, but masturbation is so huge in my life. Like if I weren't coming on a regular basis, I would not be nearly as happy.
Such a bitch.
Right.
Yeah. Such a bitch.
I wouldn't be nearly as cheerful as I am on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Man. Okay. So we acknowledge you. We see you. I'm sorry if this is a condition that you're living with. It is a very real thing, and you're not alone. So just know that. That is going to wrap up our episode on Penile for today. Not that we won't address it again in the future, because again, it's my favorite subject. But going ahead and wrapping up the show, Monterey, will you tell the people where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram. It's at Monterey. I almost forgot. And I was like, oh, thank God they have it listed there. But at Monterey M. And then on YouTube, it's Monarey Martinez. And Twitter, everything, it's at Monterey M. So TikTok, Twitter, all that good stuff.
And what a cute way to spell Monterey, by the way.
Yeah,
I
my
love
dad, it. He's a little druggy boy.
Super creative. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. And Dr. Eddie, again, thank you so much for being on the show with us. You bring so much to the table, and I'm so appreciative of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, guys, that's it for today. And until next time, click that little subscribe button, and we'll see you later. Adios.